Well, hello everyone. This is Tanja, the host of My Two Cents for Change, and we're back for a very educational and informative topic. The guest that we're having on today, she has been living with HIV for over 20, well, almost 25 years. Um, and so we're going to talk about that, but I want to introduce her and read her bio because it's quite interesting. Some people kind of shy away from things. She doesn't. She's making sure that her life she's living is a legacy for her son and so many others. So we want you to know more about her and just to make sure that, if any information you hear can help you, it does, or someone that you know. Her name is Ida Maria Henson Starks, and she is a native of Orlando and a graduate of Jones High School. Ida attended Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama. Ida's former employers include AT&T, Bell South, Orange County Clerk of Courts, Department of Children and Families, and the Orlando Police Department. After being diagnosed HIV positive in 2000, Ida has worked for various organizations in the HIV/AIDS community. Some of the agencies include the Nehemiah Educational and Economic Development Program, and that acronym would be NEED, and Haven of Hope Ministries, Miracle of Love Incorporated, Abbott, Merck, and V5, I believe she can correct me later, pharmaceutical companies, Let's Beehive Inc., and Can Community Health, as well as for the Florida Department of Health in Orange and Lake counties. She has held positions as a psychosocial support administrator, Ryan White, and the acronym is HOPWA, is HOPWA, Housing Opportunity for People with AIDS, case manager, outreach specialist, and program manager. Currently, Ida serves as an intensive care manager for the Florida Department of Health in Orange County, where she assesses and links clients to various resources throughout the community. Though Ida has held many leadership roles, she accepted this position so that she could return her passion, which is hands on patient care. This position affords her the opportunity to ensure clients get the care they need, deserve, and are entitled to. Having had the opportunity to share her story, Ida has sat on many panels and forums across the United States. Engagements include town hall meetings in New Orleans, Louisiana, striving to assist persons affected by Hurricane Katrina in 2005, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women of Central Florida, the Faith in HIV Conference, Orlando, Florida, Walker Bauer Presbyterian Church Conference, Woodruff, South Carolina, Female Empowerment Symposium, Savannah, Georgia, NAACP and the Black Church and HIV Initiative, Jackson, Mississippi. I am a Queen Bee HIV/AIDS Symposium for Women and Girls, and the Central Florida Women's Initiative, to name a few. Ida has also had the opportunity to interview on several occasions with radio personality Monica May of Star 94.5 on her community forum, as well as she has sat on Monica's Spill the Tea panel at the Tom Joyner Family Reunion, promoting and encouraging young people to be educated regarding healthy relationships. Ida was the Unsung Hero recipient in 2014 for the National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Consortium and received the Public Health Hero Award April 2016, presented by the Florida Department of Health in Orange County. December 2023, Ida received the Lifetime Achievement Award presented by the Central Florida HIV Planning Council. I'm sorry, y'all. Ida is a current member of the Central Florida Planning Council, where she serves as the patient care consumer representative for the Ryan White community. Ida was selected to sit on the statewide consumer advisory group that represents Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Lake, and Brevard counties, and she is the state of Florida representative for the Center of Disease Control Medical Monitoring Project. Not only is Ida a pivotal person in the HIV community, she is also a proud mother of one son, Wendell Maurice Starks II, and a woman who stands on the Word of God. She is proud to share that she was raised and baptized in Shiloh Baptist Church by the late Reverend J.W. Toomer. She is a charter member of the New Covenant Baptist Church of Orlando, where the Reverend Dr. Leroy Rose is pastor. Encouraging and educating people about healthy living as well as helping people to get a fresh start in life after a diagnosis is what she enjoys doing the most. Her motto is, "There is life after a positive test result." That's a lot. So we see how active she is, and some of y'all act like y'all can't do nothing. Well, we're going to bring her on the stage. Welcome, Miss Ida. Welcome, Sunshine. I appreciate this, gracing us with your presence. So, since we've read all of that, I think they know a little something about you. But I want to know, since the topic is living with HIV, when was your first personal encounter with knowing about HIV?
Good afternoon, all, and thank you so very much for having me. Thank you, Tanja, for inviting me to sit on this platform and be able to share with the community so much more than just my story, but some tidbits of education and maybe even some entertainment in here somewhere. But again, I do appreciate the opportunity to come and sit before the people, whether you're black or white or tall or short or straight or gay or thin or small or big, or it matters not, because this is a disease that affect all walks of life. My first encounter with the HIV/AIDS virus was back in maybe 1990, when a very close family member, close relative, was diagnosed. When I found out, they had been diagnosed for a while, but because I was younger, part of the younger generation at that time, a lot of information wasn't disclosed to me. By the time I really found out, and I want to say those were my early 20s, by the time I really found out what was going on, the person was in their last days. So I learned a little more, got a little more information. Um, but sometimes along this walk of life, you find out what's important to you right here, right now, and then you don't pay any more attention to it. So that was my first encounter, was that loved one who later passed away. So for many years, that was what I knew about the HIV/AIDS virus, is that it will take you from point A to point Z, and at that time, really fast, and ultimately die. So that was what I knew about HIV/AIDS.
Okay. Okay. So, after knowing that, what gave you the inkling or the push to go get tested for HIV?
So I was dating a young man who got into some trouble and went to jail. While in jail, he gave me a phone call and recommended that I contact the Florida Department of Health right here in
Mhm.
Orange County, Florida, that is, um, and go get tested. And what he recommended at that time was that I get tested for syphilis. He had shared that he had come up with a positive syphilis test, and that I needed to go get checked out. Um, that was my push. That was my push. And again, my initial push was because someone I had slept with had contracted syphilis. However, however, um, I went to the Department of Health, and they offered a full panel or a battery of tests. And those tests included syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, HIV. It's the STD panel, or what is now known as the STI, sexually transmitted infectious disease. Um, so when they told me that they were going to be drawing blood, um, and asked me what test did I want outside of syphilis, I said, well, since you're going to draw my blood, test me for everything.
Mhm.
And though I did not know what I was asking for at that time, today I am happy that I had that free spirit even then to authorize them. Because, sometimes we'd be like, no, we don't want that. No, we don't want that. No, I don't. And sometimes it's in our own mind because we don't want to know.
Mhm.
But at that point, I wasn't afraid of anything, had never been sick a day in my life. Besides some bronchitis and asthma, I had been healthy, healthy. So I went on in, gave the blood, and 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. Well, I got a phone call to tell me to come back down to the health department to get my results. Well, when you take a test, you want your results. What I didn't know at that time was the health department sends you a letter if everything is well. Just a little card that said, everything is good, see you in 6 months or see you in a year. But when they call, and again, I did not know this at that time, when they call, that means something is going on that they need to talk to you about face to face. But because I didn't know it, I bebopped in there the next day to get my test results.
Mhm.
Got those test results and went back with the counselor and sat down in a little room. And he asked me, what do you want first, the good news or the not so good news? And I said, well, give me the good news first. And he started out with the gonorrhea and the chlamydia and the syphilis tests
Mhm.
were all negative. And I was like, oh, okay. Because what did I go for? I went for that syphilis test. So that was what my ears were tuned up for. And at that point, 2 weeks later, I didn't remember what the panel of tests that they were given. I just remember they were drawing blood for a panel of tests. So when they said gonorrhea and syphilis and chlamydia was good, I really didn't remember what that other test was because that was not why I was there.
Mhm.
And I said to him, well, but if that's the good news, and yay, no syphilis, then what could be the not so good news? And I use that word and I'll share with you and the audience. I don't talk about bad news. There's no such thing. Some news is not as good as other news,
Mhm.
but bad news tends to put us in a space, and I don't like thinking negative. So it was just some not so good news,
Mhm.
and that was that my HIV test came back not only reactive, and I'll explain later what that means. Not only reactive, but confirmed positive. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a moment right now while it's fresh on my mind to explain what the difference in being reactive and what the difference in a confirmatory would be. If you go out to some of our mobile units or even come downtown to our local health department or any of our neighboring agencies,
Mhm.
there's one in the city near you, wherever you are, and get tested. What they have out on the market is even those that can be mailed to you are 15-minute swabs, where they'll swab you and check for the antibodies.
Mhm.
Um, and they'll stick it in a solution, and in 15 minutes, I said 15 minutes,
Oh.
you can get your results back. Um, and normally they're either negative or reactive. Reactive means maybe it could be something else going on, like hepatitis, that carries similar antibodies.
Okay.
So they only do a negative and a reactive. If it comes back reactive, then what they do is they take that vial. They will do a blood draw at that point, and
Okay.
they'll send that up to the state lab to confirm that this vial that we have that said reactive, that didn't say negative. It
Okay.
could have even said inconclusive, but it did not say negative. We need to do further testing to see what is going on with this person. So it's negative or reactive, and sometimes inconclusive. Very seldom is it inconclusive, but negative or reactive. And if reactive, a blood draw is then done because all they did was swab you. That was a 15-minute swab in the cheeks. That's where your antibodies, the HIV antibodies, sit is in the cheeks of in the gum, and they'll then draw blood and send it off. So I wanted to share that with you while it was fresh on my mind. So when they gave me my results, it was a confirmatory. That was the reason it took 2 weeks. 15 minutes for original test, but I didn't do the original test
Okay.
because they were only drawing blood for the others. So they just did one sweep and sent it on up to the state lab. So by the time it came back with a confirmatory positive. So he gave me that news, and I'll just tell you, I became as one with that chair. What do you do with news that says that you have contracted something that there's no cure for? What do you do? Where do you go? Who do you tell? What do you say? How do you respond? How do you act? Do you say thank you? Do you say the heck with you? Do you hit them in the eye? Do you, what is a response? Um, and I began to cry. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I began to cry, and he said, "Do you need a few minutes?" Handed me some tissue, and I said yes, and he stepped out of the room. And I sat there going, I'm gonna die, because that was what I knew. I
Mhm.
knew diagnosis and I knew death. I didn't know the dash in between the two.
All right.
Um, so he came back in and he handed me my confirmatory, which was then called a Western blot. He handed me my confirmatory. He handed me a bag of condoms, and he gave me a referral to go to the health department, the main health department. I happen to have been at the one over on Raleigh Street, which is where we used to do a lot of our testing. Some people remember when it was right there across the street from Carver Shores at the Lila Mitchell Center, right there on Raleigh. But that was where I actually did my testing. But he gave me information to go down to the health department and to get into care. Well, I was a professional. I was suited up. I was dressed. Those of you who know Ida, and those of you who don't, I'm a little spicy from time to time. So I was suited up when I walked into this health department that day. Well, when I walked out, I just knew that I had a ticker tape with HIV positive scrolling across my forehead. Just that quick. I just knew that everybody, when I walk out this office, everybody.
I was going to know.
I walked out. I remember dropping that bag of condoms, that referral, and the Western blot in the garbage. Cause back then you didn't want nobody to know.
Yeah, that's.
You stigma, and we'll talk about that later in the show. Stigma was really, 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 really bad then.
Hmm.
Nobody wanted to sit behind you. Because if you sat in a seat, you was gonna get it. Nobody definitely didn't want to eat behind you. Nobody wanted to use your cup or your plate or your fork, or definitely not a relationship. You know, um, you were almost short of being quarantined from society.
Right.
So as I walked out of there, I thought about it. I never did I ever think that I would be in this situation. I was a church girl. I was
Mhm.
in the choir. I was on the usher board. I played for Sunday school. I played for BTU. I've been in the church all my life. I had not sold my body. I had not been promiscuous. I had not done drugs. I had not done these things that society says that would have caused me to contract this virus.
Mhm.
Me, I'm a Henson. And that meant something. We have an old family in the community. And what are these people going to think of me? What is my family going to think? What are my parents going to think that I've been out here doing in the dark of night? And by day, I'm this professional. What am I going to do? I sat in that parking lot that day for about 2 hours. I didn't
Wow.
know where to go. I, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know who to tell. I didn't know. I finally went home that evening, and I was actually staying with a cousin. But you don't tell them, they might put you out. They don't want you on their sheets, on their bed, in their house. There were children there. Who? How do you tell this? But my boyfriend called. He was still incarcerated, and I told him the same way I told the counselor told me. I have good news and bad news. What do you want first? And I gave him my news, and there was a response that over the years I've questioned the response after disclosing. But moving on from that space, he got out of jail. We decided we weren't going to tell anybody because the truth was I needed to accept this for myself. And at that time, the response was, "Well, I'm going to love you in spite of." So, having been married a couple of times previously, I had had my share of partners. I didn't know where this came from. I've never pointed a finger at anybody because I didn't know my status. It is so very important, self care, that we know our status, that we take responsibility for our actions. I've never pointed a finger at anybody and said anybody did anything to me, because when I went into that relationship, I didn't know my own status.
Mm-hmm.
So before pointing a finger at somebody else and saying, "You did this to me," they could turn those fingers right back around and say, "You did this to me." And I wouldn't have a leg to stand on because I didn't know.
And I think that's so good that you look at it that way, because so many people, they do want to point the fingers. And I want to go back to something that you said prior, about going and not knowing certain things, about how things work. I remember telling you that my way of finding out, like it wasn't going to go to the state, like you said, was to just get a life insurance policy. And if they allow you to get it, then you're good. And I was ignorant, you know what I'm saying? Because I just didn't think about the entire process. And also, I just want you, because you touched on the difference, um, between negative and reactive,
Reactive. Hmm.
I want you to touch bases between the difference of HIV and AIDS. Could you do that for us, since you were given the difference between the two?
Absolutely. And thank you so very much for asking. And there might be a little entertainment in here as I explain and share. But it's proud entertainment, if you will. So the difference in HIV and AIDS. HIV is the human immunodeficiency virus. It is a virus.
Mhm.
AIDS is the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. The syndrome is what will come after the virus, meaning now we have a hard time getting rid of the virus. The virus is not suppressed. The virus has taken out the blood cells. You hear of people having to have transfusions and different things, opportunistic infections that go on, that the immune system no longer can fight. The difference in the two when it comes to the Center of Disease Control, known as CDC, is but a number. So, what the virus and AIDS, HIV and AIDS, looked like years ago was more definitive than it is today. Today, you have your CD4, which you want to have. Um, uh, that is the antibodies that you want to have above 200. When those antibodies drop below 200, then your body is open up for infection and different things that come on. You want your viral load to be suppressed. You don't want a viral load. And every one of us have a viral load. You just have to learn about your viral load.
Okay.
Every living being has a viral load. That's why we can get viruses and different things and other illnesses, is because we do have a viral load. And when those viral loads become compromised, that's when we tend to get sick, or those, more viruses in our bodies. That's when we tend to not feel well. We get the common cold or the flu. That's but a virus that's in our body. You want your viral load suppressed. You want your viral load to hang below some blood centers say below 50, others say below 20. So you want a high CD4 and a low viral load. And I will share publicly that my CD4 tends to hang around 900. The CD4 of a 100% healthy person is about 1500. So I have about a 500, 600 number gap there, but I am very healthy because my viral load is suppressed, and it has been suppressed for 23 of the almost 25 years that I've been diagnosed. I take care of myself. I take my medication. A lot of people are fearful of the medication. I'm just one of those free spirits that say, hey, listen, uh, give me what you got. Let me see what it'll do for me, in hopes. And we have to understand that with any of us, medicine is a practice.
Mm-hmm. That
Medicine is a practice. When you have the common cold and go to your medical provider, and he say, I'm going to give you 10 days or 14 days of pills, and if you're not 7 days or 10 days of pills, and if you're not feeling better, come on back. Why? Because they just practiced on me.
right.
And if it don't work, we'll try something else. Well, that was where I was with HIV. My mindset was it couldn't get any worse. So give me what you got so I can do what I can to try and live. With that being said, that is the difference in HIV and AIDS. The humorous part that I wanted to share, go back to that. And it's humorous, but it's not so humorous. No one's proud of having the virus or AIDS. No one knocked on the door. HIV AIDS is not a disease where people open up their arms and come and love on you as they do with cancer. If you tell somebody you got cancer, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Call me and let me know. With HIV AIDS, stigma still has it that people are still wondering, what did you do to get that? You must have been doing something to get that. We all do something.
Right.
We all do something, but nobody has done anything to say, this is what I want. So, with that being said, differentiating, and this is just public knowledge, differentiating HIV and AIDS in our community being those of us living with HIV HIV or AIDS, and that just brought up something else that I'll mention. Um, those of us who are still only HIV positive, we take great pride in that because we're working hard to maintain that HIV status. Now, we don't look down on any, or we shouldn't look down on anybody who has the AIDS virus, because you don't know their circumstances. You don't know their situation. They could have been anemic before they were diagnosed. They could have had some other health issues before they were diagnosed. And then this has taken a toll on their health system, on their body. So it's not that we look down on those who have an AIDS diagnosis, but those of us who are HIV positive are proud, because it's work. It's work to remember to take your meds. It's work to keep a smile on your face in the face of adversity. It's work. It's hard work to walk in our community, in our streets, in our world today, without people looking at you sideways for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a kind generation anymore. We're not a kind society as a whole. We don't smile at each other. We don't love on each other. And all of these things that I'm bringing up, it affects the HIV community, because on the other side of that diagnosis, I am but a person. I am but a human. And I want to be loved and I want to be appreciated and I want to, do the same things that others did. And that day sitting in that parking lot after that diagnosis, I didn't see hope in front of me. I saw death. I saw death. And we decided not to tell at that time. We didn't know how to tell. We didn't know who to tell. And I say we at that time, it was just me. But from the jail cell, my boyfriend was still supporting me, but we weren't going to tell. 6 months later, I found out, 8 months later, I found out I was expecting a baby. And I miscarried that baby in February of 2001. But prior to that miscarriage, I got into care. I got into medical care. Um, I did not get into medical care until I found out I was pregnant. At that time, I wasn't in care for me, I was in care for the baby. But we have a humorous God. I lost that heartbeat. But with the loss of that life, my life began because I started taking meds and I started taking care of myself. So that was my beam. That child that I lost was my beam of light and life for me. I try to turn things around. We can walk with our heads down and we can walk in dismay, but I try to find those things that I've experienced in life and turn them around and put a smile on my face about it because there is an option. There's people dying that ain't never died before. So I just try to live. I try to live. I went on to tell my parents about it. Not right away. Not right away. Even after I had the miscarriage. Um, HIPAA says they didn't have to tell my parents, even though they knew I had a miscarriage, had been to the hospital with me. They did not disclose my status. So my parents walked that road with me without knowing my diagnosis at that time. It took me about 2 years to tell my parents because I was afraid. I was afraid. I was afraid, and they were older, and I didn't know how they were going to respond. So it took me about 2 years, and what I've gathered since that time is I had to find my own strength
Mhm.
to tell them whether they were going to put me out the house, X me out the family, not love me anymore, whatever it was. I figured out I had to be in a place of security for me. So I had learned to protect myself and my heart and my mind and my thoughts, that whatever their response was going to be,
Mhm.
I was going to be okay with it. Well, I told my mom first. We were sitting down just having a general conversation. It wasn't something I sat down to tell her. We were having a conversation and up and out it came. Hey, mom, by the way, I'm HIV positive. And she took it back to me and say, what now? I'm HIV positive. Oh no, of course, was her response. Oh, how long have you known? I've known for about two years. Why did it take you so long to tell me? Because I was worried about what your response was going to be. I didn't know whether you were going to accept me. And what she said to me that day launched me into this one. And that was, you're my child, and I'm going to love you in spite of.
Oh,
And my thought then was, if I would have known that, I would have told you 2 years ago. But fear and stigma and society and all of the elements that we tend to attach ourselves to, that are of this world, in
mhm.
this world, in this world,
Mhm.
will put a fear factor even to the ones that love you the most.
Yes, yes. And the thing that, like, you talk about the stigma, there's an image that comes with people, because most people, when you say HIV, they automatically think AIDS. And that's why I wanted you to kind of differentiate between the two, because I've known people working in the jail system, you get to know who has it and who does not have it. And then I know a few people on the outsides that, have it. And there's no look. You understand? There's no look. I've seen smaller ones. I've seen ones that are, larger. And so it's like, one young lady told me, she's like, people look at me and this is one of the girls in the gym. She's like, they look at me and they think I don't have it because I'm big. She said, but I do. And, I don't understand it. But at least I knew that was her way out of venting and talking,
Mhm.
because I'm
Mhm.
sure she had children. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
she was just keeping it to herself. That's what it appeared to be. And so she
Gotcha.
figured she could tell me without telling anybody else. So I'm glad that you're talking about it because, you know, I've heard a lot of guys jokingly say, I ain't worried about how I can sleep with her because she ain't got it, because she big or whatever and stuff like that. But that's not a true statement. So it is important, you all can look at the bottom of the screen and there find a center near you, no matter where you are. And then if you're in Orange County, Florida, then you can go to the Orange County Health Department and get tested for free and know your status because it's not a death sentence as it was stated years ago. There's no stigma if you choose to take care of yourself. She's been living with it for almost 25 years. She's beautiful. She's full of life. We met before this show and we just had such a great time talking about life. And I mean, she's she made me feel bad because she smiled way more than I did. I was like, oh, I thought I was the chipper one, but she just, I'm so proud of you for taking this platform and educating others and being involved in so many different other organizations that do enlighten and encourage and educate others about what you can do to live. And as you said before, your viral load is so low, it's really undetectable. It doesn't mean that you stop taking your medications because, like you said, you have to continue that lifestyle. And the medical doctors are practicing. So, what you do know for sure, you continue that so that you can continue smiling and
So,
letting people know there is life. I live my life, and I was jealous of you telling me some stuff yesterday. I was like, "Ooh, she living better than me." Okay, honey, but continue
mhm.
on because I know you have a lot more to say. Do you have a boyfriend?
So, as Facebook can say, it's complicated. I do have a male friend in my life. We keep our business private. He
Absolutely.
is HIV negative, and I give him his place in his space. This is not about me, but this is for me. This is for me and the community in which I live and I serve. And you know, um, not to put a dark cloud over any of this, but everybody is not always receptive of how you do what you do.
Hmm.
That's just life.
Right,
That's just life. What
right.
do you do about it? I like red, you like black. I can't be mad at you because you like black. Just don't be mad at me because I don't wear black or I wear red. So you just have to find common ground. There's no perfect person, and all of us are uniquely made. I'm doing what I'm doing because of the community in which I live. Almost 25 years ago, May 9th, 2025 will be 25 years that I've been diagnosed. And I made a decision not to stick my head in the sand. Some of the numbers include Black women. One out of every five Black women are being diagnosed in the United States. That's an alarming number because I know there was just a conference in Austin, Texas, in Dallas area this past weekend with nothing but Black women, happy Black women, God-filled women, but there were some hurting women there. You don't know people's story. And I choose to come on these platforms. I choose to be out in the community. I choose to share, not because I'm proud that I have HIV. I'm not. I'm not. But what I will say I'm proud that God gave me the know with all and promised that He would never leave me or forsake me. And
Amen.
He's given me the ability and the courage to step out and to share my story because there's somebody else on the other end of this podcast that their letters may not be HIV. Robin Roberts wrote a book years ago, Everybody's Got Something. Maybe they can take my something and put their something in my something's place, and maybe there's a word that I can offer, there's some hope that I can give, that there is life after a positive test result, positive pregnancy, positive cancer, positive hypertension, positive mental disability, positive whatever.
Right.
But you can turn that around and make that positive work for you. And
Hmm.
that's just kind of where I am and why I do. I have a wonderful support system. I have an awesome support system, starting with that young man of mine. I got that 18
Yeah,
year
that's
old.
a smile on the face.
Yes, yes. He is my son, SONSUN Shine. He is the magic to his story, if you will, is that his dad and I both were diagnosed HIV positive. Um, and in 2006, I found out that I was expecting again. And I remember I had the opportunity to go to a podiatrist, a foot doctor. My first time going, I had a heel spur, I had to fill out the paperwork, and on the paperwork, there was a place that I was able to put that I was expecting, and there was also a place that I shared that I was HIV positive. And I went into this exam room, and he came in just as nice as he wanted to be, and he inquired. So think about it. There's this guy with these letters behind his name who wanted to talk to me on a different level, and not as a patient, but as a provider. And he wanted to know, how did I feel about being pregnant and HIV? Was I not afraid that I was going to pass the virus to the baby? And like I said, it was just an opportunity to educate, and anybody can learn. I
Yep.
was able to share with him that I did not believe that God had brought me to it, not to bring me through it, and that I would bring the baby here with any health disparities. And that is the miracle. I called it magic. I will change that word. That's the miracle. Is that we had a child born to two positive parents, and he was born HIV negative. He was never born positive. Sometimes babies are born positive because they have their mom's antibodies. And if their mom's antibodies and numbers aren't in alignment, the baby could be born positive, though they can take the medication because it's so minimal, and it's really just the mom's antibodies, not the child's antibodies. They can get rid of that over a period of 18 months, give or take. Maurice was born with his own antibodies. He was born HIV negative, and I just don't believe that he was purposed to come here ill, come sick, come with the virus. The same way I believe I was purposed, God has purposed HIV in my life. He didn't give it to me. It wasn't given to me. It was not given to me for me to die.
Amen.
It was given to me for me to live.
Well, the learning journey says keep living life each and every day. So that's
Yes,
true, and that you're doing.
yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
I am so glad we reconnected. Your story is just so awesome. I tell you,
Thank you.
all
Thank you.
those myths or misconceptions or stigmas that come along with it, you've proven that that's not true. And so
Absolutely.
it's a matter of what you decide to do. So if you decide you're going to live, there are ways for you to do that, and you take advantage of that, and you're living.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
appreciate you sharing this information. I can't say that enough. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record towards this, but there are a lot of things that I learned from you about what I thought I knew. Because people will tell you different things and
Absolutely.
it's not true. So
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for having me to share.
Hmm. Okay, and you can say continue on. I like I said, if
Well,
I anything.
the end of my story. to paraphrase some, is that my partner and I got married.
Mhm.
We ended up together. We stayed married for a little over 7 years. We had a beautiful baby boy, again, who's HIV negative. Um, though our marriage didn't work, our friendship has. We've still been able to remain friends, live our lives, go on about business. I've worked in the field now 23 of the 25 years. Um, I am take once every 60 days. And the blessing from watching that relative of mine who was taking 30 pills a day, 10 in the morning, 10 at noon, and 10 at night, to get to where we are today, where I take an injectable once every 60 days. It gives me a freedom to be able to live and not focus every morning to reach into that medicine cabinet and get that pill bottle out and take that top off and pour that pill in my hand. And every time I put that pill in my mouth, it reminded me that you're positive. This injectable now, at least 59 days of the month, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to remember it. This isn't my story, but so many clients that sit in front of me because their family and their friends don't know stigma. Stigma is real. Stigma is real. Stigma is still real today. I talked about when I was diagnosed in 2000. That same stigma is out here today because of the lack of knowledge, because of being misinformed, because of not getting the education. COVID has come. It hasn't gone, but it's passed its way through and kept going. And we know everything about COVID. But HIV is 40 years old, and we're still telling. I had a client that shared with me, quick story. As a matter of fact, it was one of my staff members came in and said, Miss Ida, I'd like for you to meet this client. He has a story to share. African American gay male came into my office and he held his head down and he said, um, I just recently found out that I was positive, and I asked, "Well, have you told anybody?" He said, "Well, yeah, now I've told everybody." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, I
Mhm.
went home and I told my mom, and immediately my mom got on the phone with my grandma and called my grandma. My grandma told my uncles and my aunts, and they all rallied around me and told me that they love me. However, we have second Sunday dinner, and my grandma called me Saturday night and said, "Listen, baby, know you always welcome to
Mhm.
come to dinner. But when you come to dinner, make sure and bring your own plate and your own fork and your own cup." I see your face because it's still real.
Black Love United says, "Oh my."
Because it's still real. It's still real. People are still not sure how to contract it. Once again, we know about COVID, or do we know about COVID? We still need to mask up because we, if somebody sneeze, we ready to die.
Right. You're like, ooh, you
You
got,
know, they got allergies. They got, they had
yeah,
allergies, but we just know that was COVID. They just sneezed out, But the stigma is still real, and that's a true story. That's been a couple of years ago now, but it's been in the 2020s that I got that story of a young man who wasn't banned from going to dinner.
just
He
couldn't
wasn't
eat,
banned. He
just
just
couldn't
couldn't
eat
eat
out of
off
there.
of.
Yeah,
And this is what I said to him. And then I told him, I guess I might have to find a place for you to live if you get flip out the mouth. But this is what I said to him. I said, well, tell your mom, tell your grandma, don't go to Golden Corral because they don't know who plates they eating off of.
that's
Don't
right.
go to don't go to Blackfin. Don't go to Red Lobster. Don't go to these places that actually serve meals on dishes. Cause I've been there and I've eaten off of it, so they might have got my plate. You don't know.
Exactly.
Once again, that's the lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
That's the lack of knowledge. HIV can be spread through vaginal sex, anal sex, through breast milk. It cannot be spread by a mosquito bite. It cannot be spread because you drink after me. It cannot be spread. Um, the way it can be spread from kissing is if there's sores in the mouth, in both persons' mouth, because it has to have an entry point. If
Oh,
if there's ooze or blood that's coming from one person's mouth and the other person has open wounds or open sores in their mouth, and the blood exchange, then yes, Yes.
Right.
But dry along slow, it would take 5 gallons of spit. Excuse that, but that's what it would take. Um, the
Blood.
reason
Okay. Blood.
blood transfusions,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Though, um, of course, you know, everything that's being done by man, there's room for error.
Absolutely.
But there is a very limited risk today of blood transfusion being the cause of. I'm not saying it can't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it can't, but it's a very low risk of a blood transfusion because that blood is supposed to be um, monitored and done whatever it is that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm here to share with the people. I'm here to support the community by any means necessary. And I'm not talking about I'm 55 years old. Yes, that's what it would take for it. Yeah, I know for
Wonderful.
you to and of course for you to pass the virus. But I'm here on all levels. I say that because our babies, I mentioned my 18-year-old, my sunshine, who's HIV negative, but because of limited access into the school system, I've educated him so that he can go in and educate his friends. We perish for the lack of knowledge. So
Amen.
I make sure, I'm sorry, and parents will ask me, well, when do you think it's time for me to talk to my child? Only you know that because you know the maturity of your child. You know what your child can handle and what your child can't handle. And if you start in on something and they're looking bamboozled or looking confused, you back out of it. Then you know it's not quite that time. If they're interested or if they're portraying some different actions, you might want to. But what I will say, and I say this being a church girl, and I say that, and I'm going way back. My baby won't do that. Don't work no more. My baby won't do that. Oh, my baby ain't doing that.
Hmm.
What I found out, and I'm speaking from firsthand experience, and maybe everybody else in the world was perfect, but I only have my story to tell. And my story was I went out the back door when mom and daddy went to bed. 16, 17 years old. I can tell it now. They ain't here to get me because they get me. But I did. And my mom and daddy knew I was playing the piano at the church, and I was taking ballet, and I was taking swimming lessons, and I was a good girl. I was, but I
Mm-hmm.
was mischievous.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about what our children won't do, don't get it mistaken because opportunity will present itself. But what do our babies know on the other side of opportunities? We need to sit down and talk. And maybe it's not your child, maybe it's your grandchild or your brother's child or your niece or your nephew or somebody. Have these conversations, but you got to be educated
Right.
because these babies out here in this world, they'll
Ooh.
give you some stuff that make you slap your face and go, say what now? You know, and I'm in the field, I'm learning,
Yes.
I'm hearing it, and they'll come to my baby comes home. He's been packing what we called animal balloons, condoms, for years, for years. I bring them home. We'd be getting ready for different events, and I'm gonna pass out condoms. So we put 10 or 15 condoms in a brown bag. That was my quality time that I spent with him. Is that he would count 1, 2, 3. We're talking at 4, 3, 4, 5 years old, putting them in a bag, rolling up the bag, and he knew them as animal balloons. We're passing out. Well,
Never
now
went that way.
he figured out that they're not animal balloons anymore, and it's fine. It's fine. He'll kill me if he hear this story on air. But I saw 6 condoms on his dresser a couple of weeks ago, and a week or so later, I went back and only saw 3 condoms. And of course, you shake and go, not my baby. But what I will say, I've educated him. I prefer that if he is out there doing something, if he's out there, I see that. If he's out there doing something, I've educated him what to do to protect himself. And that's what's important. Protect yourself, know your status, go get tested. I challenge every person, man, woman, transgender. I go there because it's in the community. It doesn't mean that we have to like it or accept it, but it is what it is. And
Mhm.
we have to touch the lives wherever we can meet them.
Okay.
Go get
Mhm.
your test done.
Okay, and on along those lines, I know we were talking about growing up in the church and being Christians. And people think when they meet someone, they look a certain way, so they marry them without worrying about getting tested. That's very important. I think I look forward to getting married again, but we will get tested before we do that, you know, because you can't just look at a person like we said before and say this person does or does not have. And so what you said is it doesn't matter who you are, you need to get tested, and that's so true.
Correct. And I say this, and this is not self promotion, but this is the face of HIV. Nothing about this face says that I'm HIV positive.
Right.
Nothing at all.
Girl, you
So
look
when you
good and you look young, and it's like, you know,
thank you,
you just
thank you.
I'm
But these are things that we have to keep in mind. HIV doesn't look a certain way.
right,
It
right,
does not. I challenge the community to go get tested. And if you're partnered or married or coupled or whatever the new words are, take a day out from work, spend a day together, and go to the health department or go to a local agency. You don't have to come to the health department. There's enough local agencies, community-based organizations out there. All you got to do is Google HIV in my area, and it'll tell you where you can go get tested. Um, but go together. Go together. I don't know of any Siamese twins. So therefore, when I go to work, my partner goes to work. Or when I go, we don't know, just like we said about the children, we don't know what people are doing. I don't anymore, but I have sat on the other side of the test table. And the people that sit across from me aren't all prostitutes. They're not all drug users. They're
right,
not all young people.
right.
There, there's some doctors that have sat across from me. There's some lawyers that have sat across from me. There are some married men and women who have sat across from me and have shared their stories, their oops, their I got caught up, their I didn't mean to. I've heard the stories. Go get tested. Go get tested alone. Go get tested with your partners, but know your status. Talk to your providers. Talk
That's
to your physicians. Talk to your physicians. They have a legal right to give you a test if you ask for it.
okay. Let me ask this question since we're talking about testing. Is there, I've heard that there's like an incubation period, and I don't know how true this is. I'm asking you,
Okay.
where you have to, if you just say if you had sex with someone, you have to get tested for so many years to make sure if you're abstinent that you're not getting it, or you know what I'm saying, because like you said earlier, you don't know where you get it from. If you've been sexually active and then you get it, you find out you are, and you engaged in behavior with someone else, you can't say whether you got it from this person or not, and they're not going to tell you, and you can't force them to tell you, but you just know your status. So I like that fact that you kept it positive because you didn't know your status. But is there
Absolutely.
incubation period or amount of time that if you're not sexually active after you've had your last sexual encounter that you should be getting tested for? Is there a period of time?
So the answer to that is yes and no. What I mean by that, we'll start with your encounter. If it was a sexual encounter today,
Mhm.
in 14 days, this is the new NAT test. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's NAT, and that's the common test that's out in the community today, that's passed down from the CDC and most agencies, including the health department and other agencies in the community, do the NAT test. The NAT test can tell you within 14 days, 9 to 14 days. I'll use 14 days, what your status is.
It's a blood
9 to
test?
14.
Is that a blood test?
It's a blood test.
Okay.
It's a blood test. Within 9 to 14 days, you can know of your sexual encounter or your intravenous encounter, because HIV is given other ways besides
Well,
through
that's
sex.
true.
I don't know if I mentioned that when I talked about uh, uh, mode of transmission, intravenous drug use.
Okay.
Um, but the encounter that may cause HIV, there's a test in the community that can tell you within 14 days what your status is. Now, what the myth that you're speaking of, but you put a twist in there. It can lay dormant for 10 years, is what I've heard the community say. It can go up to 10 years and you didn't know that you got it. I don't know where that came from, but what wasn't said was they weren't tested in 10 years. Because if you're tested in 14 days after your encounter, you can find out your status. Once you find out your status and you don't have that behavior anymore, do I recommend that you get tested again? Absolutely. The only way you know your status is get tested.
Right.
Whether it was 1 year, 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, we are encouraging providers, primary care providers, OBGYN, oncologists, nephrologists, test your patients. That's the only way people are going into the emergency room. I broke my leg. Let me give you an HIV test while you're here. We hope that it's not there, but if it is, at least we know. You
Okay.
broke your leg, you're going to have some blood work done. You could be at risk. You'll be putting the person who's doing the blood test at risk. We should all know our status. So, yes, you should know your status. Yes, you should get tested yearly, but it's not because of your risky behavior 9 years ago. It's
Okay.
because you do your cholesterol test yearly, you do your hypertension test yearly. Why not do your HIV test yearly? Just put it in with that panel of tests that you're doing, and you'll always know your status. And that's what we're fighting for, is for you, the community, to know your status.
Yes, and the reason I ask is because this was back in the 90s that the young lady that had HIV that was an inmate, she said she got pregnant and had a son, and so he had to get tested for 5 years. So that's partly where I got that from. And
Okay.
and so whatever whoever told her that, but like you say, everything has gotten so much better, and it's
Correct.
yeah, and
Correct.
that point, that's what she said.
And I'll share this with you. Um, Something you and I talked about. Um, People will create their own narrative. That's not to minimize anybody. That's not to make anybody look small, make anybody look big, make anybody look proud, make anybody sad. But people will create their narrative how they want it presented. I shared in a positive light that there was a dear friend of mine that I waited to tell
Mhm.
because her loyalty was to me. But I also had a narrative that I wanted to put out there. I apologize. Narrative that I wanted to put out there, and that narrative was I was choosing life.
Right.
My narrative was not, I want you to feel sorry for me. I'm dying. I need help. I don't know what to do. That wasn't the narrative that I wanted. My narrative was that I've chosen life, and and God has abundantly blessed me
I was
in the
thinking,
midst of these challenges, in the midst of what man and society says I should hold my head low. I hold my head high. And there's somebody out there. And I help anybody. I love everybody. I help anybody. But I'm going to pull this right here. My greatest passion is that of the African American female, because we are being infected at alarming rates. And we still got our babies and our grandbabies and our parents and our spouses to take care of. But first, we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. I know I've been all over the place on this.
we've touched on topics that I think a lot of people have in their minds that are not here to ask or that I've heard, and so this will be here for a long time for people to review in the privacy of their own home, and to analyze their lifestyle and what they're doing to know whether they, you know, uh, whether they can be brave enough to go do what you're saying.
And let me share with you something because you said it. Excuse me for interrupting you.
That's okay.
Analyze their lifestyle. I want to take that. My lifestyle was going to church every Sunday. My lifestyle was having sex every now and then. That was a part of my lifestyle. And I say that because we shy away from it, but that's what we do. It's real.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in the world. I wasn't in the streets. I thought I had a clean, wholesome lifestyle. So I want to make sure that people are aware that you don't have to be doing something bad, or you don't have to be doing something mischievous, or you don't have to be with bad people. I'm not a bad person. I hurt like anybody. I laugh like anybody. I live like anybody. I have challenges like anybody. And it still happened to me. I had a two-parent household and I grew up in Orlando, and my family was known. And I went to Jones High School and I went to Tuskegee and I was in church, and my lifestyle was not of the rich and famous, but of the
Yeah.
something. And I say that because I just want to bring it back down to, you don't have to be out there doing anything to
No,
get there.
but here's what I'm saying. I hear a lot of people like you that say they go to church, they do this, but behind the scenes, they know what they're doing. They are doing some things, and so I wanted to include those people that
Thank you. Thank
present
you.
themselves a certain way, but behind the scenes, they're doing something else. So if
And
you,
that too is why I tell.
yeah, and if
That
you're
too is
sexually
why.
active or you're doing drugs that nobody else knows about, that's I'm including those people that
Correct.
might not
Correct.
people might not know about what they're doing, but they're doing it. So if they hear this, then they can kind of like, okay, yeah, I did this, so let me go get myself checked out.
So
And
check that.
yes, so that's
Absolutely.
why I'm saying be brave enough to do it, because
Correct.
everybody in the church ain't Christians. They're
I'ma
church.
just look I'ma just look straight.
And
Correct.
everybody out there, we don't have a lot of bad people. I
No.
deduced it to that. We don't have a lot
Right.
of bad people.
Right.
We just have
Right.
people that make bad choices, like you said earlier. And so
Absolutely.
because of that, they
Absolutely.
need to understand you can still be loved. You can still get the care you need and still live just as you've
Yes.
done for these 24 plus years.
Yes.
And you living your best life.
Am I?
So
Yes.
I am proud
Absolutely.
to have you here to let other
Thank
people
you.
know you can be brave too. Now you don't have to go
Yes.
tell the whole world, because, like you said, some people you are that person that just says, "Oh, they need to know." But then you got some
Absolutely.
people that tell their inner circle, and they get that support they need, because everybody's not going to be what you think they should be to you while you're going through it. And I
Absolutely.
think that too, your process that you went through before you even told your parents was great, because once you process it, then whatever somebody else says, you can kind of let it bounce off you, like if it's.
Absolutely.
And so, because
Absolutely.
if you take it on the first go round, you kind of like, oh, and then you start feeling bad, and you can go into a depression. And so, I think that was a great move. And I knew you had the love, because, like you said, some of the things you said to me, you had the love. You just didn't feel it because of some other issues. And so,
Issues. Yes.
yeah. And so I thank you. You're living a
Thank you.
life. And I recommend this movie called Second Chance. I don't know which streaming platform it's on, but it's a movie called Second Chance with something else. But it's the guy fell in love with this young lady in high school, but he was dating this other girl that tried it, but he really loved this other girl because she was just his friend, but he loved her and she didn't know it. So he went off, married this girl, got a divorce, came back to town, found out she was still
Mhm.
single. Then he wanted to get with her, and then they going out and having a good time. And then all of a sudden, when he was trying to have sex with her, she had to tell him her status, and he got upset But then he later found out after going to the doctor with her that it's harder, for her to pass it on. And, if everybody's taking their meds and everything, you'll be fine and you can have the kids. Well, that to me was based upon a video I watched of a real life story of this young lady who that happened to. And her and her husband now have 3 children. He's still negative. The children are negative, and her viral load is very low. And so they're
Mhm.
living their lives. And you can have someone to love you, and you can have a relationship, but you have to make the decision to take care of you first, and then you can live. And I thought after having spoken with you to watch for that movie to pop up, I said, okay, God, this is what you directed me to do.
Absolutely.
And so that's
Absolutely.
why I felt it important for you to come on and share so that other people know what it looks like. And that means
Absolutely.
you can't tell
Absolutely.
anything. So,
Right.
so
And
look,
Tanja, I want to turn this back on to you and say thank you for your obedience. Thank you, because the only way this gets out is word of mouth. Um, we do have outreach workers, but nobody's beating anybody's door down saying, let me tell you about HIV the way that they did with COVID. You had people that was coming to the doors with COVID.
yes.
But here it is, this 40-year-old disease, and nobody, as a matter of fact, it was merely forgotten during COVID because COVID was so important. Um, so we've been back out. In addition to the health department, I do work with ViiV, I work with Merck, and I'm out here educating the community on HIV and living with HIV. Not now prevention, prevention, prevention. I push prevention. Take care of yourself. Cover up. Take your test. Know your status. But I'm also here to support those of us who have contracted the virus and encourage them. And I just want to say this to you because I did have a young lady that said this to me. It's been several years ago. She said, Miss Ida, I didn't know how to approach you because you just seem always so happy. And you always happy go
Yes.
lucky and you always on the go. And she said, but I'm positive and I don't have anybody and I cry. And I shared with that young lady that day, and I'll share with you all. I'm human. There are times I lay in my bed and I look up at the ceiling and I still say, why me? Not because I've been sick,
Mhm.
not because I've been rejected that I know of. And I say that not to be boisterous, but God has removed those people. If they weren't supposed to be in my space, I haven't seen them. I have a very tight circle of supporters that very seldom do others infiltrate that can take me down.
Mhm.
I'm harder on me than people are, I think. I am just want to make sure that I'm living right. I want to make sure that people see the God in me. I want to make sure that people see that I'm not living just to be bold and fancy free and because I got deep pockets, because I don't. But I do want people to know that I'm out here living life um, along with being HIV positive. Um, I have it, it doesn't have me. And I keep pushing and I keep living. And like I said, whatever your stuff is, it may not be HIV. And I wish that I would have been the last person in the world that could have contracted it. I would have worn it proudly and to save some other lives. But I do have an 18-year-old out here. I do hope to be a mother-in-law and a grandmother one day. And I want him to be healthy. And I want those, coming after him to be healthy. So I felt it to be important that I come out here and I share and that I love on the world, whether the world loves me back. That makes no difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But I want to love on some people that may not be loved. I want them to know that there's somebody out here that loves you in spite of. That's our Heavenly Father. I know that this might not be the time or the place,
Oh, no,
but I give
yes, it
honor.
is.
Okay, I give honor and reverence where honor and reverence is due. I am not here solely because of the meds.
Hmm.
I am here but by the grace of God.
Black love,
I'm
your body says
I'm
this is
done.
good
I'm
stuff.
done.
Well, I want to talk about one other issue before we close. I remember, and you can correct me because you know the numbers and and all that kind of stuff. But I remember doing a debate with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and they asked them a question about the HIV community. And Barack Obama kind of said some things that kind of, you know, generality kind of stuff, you know. But Hillary Clinton said something that was so profound to me. She said, "Oh, you know, the reason why they're not really doing it is because if it affected the white community, we'd have something to deal with. But because it mainly, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but because it affects the black and brown, that's why we're not really trying to do anything about it." Now, is that, and I think that's kind of along the lines of most stuff that we deal with in the United States. So is that something that affects mostly us, black and brown people?
And it does. But let's talk about the reason it affects us. Not so much because we're out there willy-nilly getting it, but we have some of the worst access to health care.
Right. Just like with
It,
COVID when that happened.
Yes, it's so much more than the diagnosis itself. The diagnosis is really the aftermath of no health care or lack of education, or there's a long line, long list of things that goes along with the diagnosis. It does affect us because we're the ones that are suffering when it comes to being able to get health care or get to health care facilities. There, we might have health care, but we live in the sticks of one of the counties, one of the rural counties that don't have good health care, and you have to travel out to get it, and so on and so forth. So it does affect us. However, and it disproportionately
Hmm.
affects us. It does. But once again, I really do believe that it's so much greater than the disease and the diagnosis. Um, I think that it's a moneymaker.
But
I
you
I
think about COVID, they made it available to everybody. And since it's a virus, just like COVID was or is still, I think had they done that same thing with HIV,
way
then
back there.
down
Hmm.
and people will be living a healthier lifestyle. I ain't gonna say healthier lifestyle, but they would be living a lot longer because we had so many died during COVID. And so, and with that medication being thrown out there, had they done the same thing, I think so many people would not have died. Um, uh,
And if you think about it, we remember freshly remember COVID because it was yesterday, day before yesterday, last week, last month. That we COVID is fresh in our mind.
I had it in July.
Real fresh to you. Real fresh to you. But the reason I bring that up is because for those of us who have a few years on us and we go back to the beginning of the epidemic of HIV, they didn't know what it was either.
Hmm. And it didn't.
COVID has
It
been
wasn't
nothing but the sister or the brother to HIV.
exactly. And it was, and at that point, it was disproportionately affecting the white community. And so they got it under control. And then when it switched, then they just kind of left it alone and it just
Yep,
kind of went away.
absolutely,
That's how it
absolutely, absolutely,
So I'm
absolutely.
glad for you to be speaking out about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that though we lost so many at the beginning of COVID, I don't think that they looked at COVID, and I won't say that because I know Dr. Fauci talked about some medication early on being similar to HIV medication, but I don't think initially that they put COVID in the same box as HIV. So when somebody's light bulb came on and said medication, we need to, there needs to be medication administered to, we
Mhm.
had lost a lot of lives. But that's exactly what happened with the AIDS epidemic
Yeah.
in the early 80s. Is nobody knew what it was, and it took a minute for the light bulb to come on. And then because it was so new, the light bulb that came on, those medications were trials. So they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to
Like
fix
you said,
things.
they're practicing.
They were practicing,
Right.
absolutely. Why have we gotten another vaccine and another vaccine and another vaccine to COVID? If it was perfect,
Right.
we would have got it the first time and that was it. but
Yeah.
I hear a new one is coming out because they practice.
Right, right, right.
I leave that alone.
Well, again, I want to thank you so much. Keep smiling, keep being the
Thank
sunshine
you.
for everybody
Thank
that
you.
you encounter because people need that. Like you said, we don't have a lot of kind people left, but the ones
Correct.
who do are doing their job. Like you said, letting God use you. You're the vessel He chose, you know,
Thank you.
and so
Thank you.
it's a blessing to have you here. And I just want everyone to know if you're contemplating getting tested, think no further. Just go do it. For free HIV testing, if you're in the Central Florida area, please call the Orange County Health Department. That's Orange County, Florida, at 407 858 1400. Or you can call the toll free number to find your HIV testing center near you at 800 232 4636. Please don't take this lightly. Don't feel like you've done something bad. We've all made bad choices, but we can correct it and keep living. So until
Yes.
next time, thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
You
Thank you.
and Black Love United says, thank you so much for sharing. All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care. And this ends it. Thank you.
Thank you.